morning. What's going on, everyone? I hope you had a good weekend. Ready for it to start the week off right. We're looking at some retirement calculators today. We're not going to focus at all on these during this session, but this should always be in your consciousness, always be in your mind. And what could you be doing today to accelerate towards those goals? Always that should be in the back of your mind, and we're going to work through them together. Today we're focusing on what is signal. What's the greatest signal that we're looking at today? We see it first of all in the calendar. Is this noise, this signal? It's pretty important. It's putting the pieces together. This week we're looking at two important things with CPI readings tomorrow, right? And then we're also looking at Wednesday and Thursday, Fed Chair Jerome Powell testifying before the lawmakers over in DC. We'll keep up to date on both of them. Right? Before we get into price, let me make sure that we got a view of the chart. Yeah. Before we get into price, sometimes I talk without the mic going. Sometimes, I didn't want to be covering up the charts as we start introducing new things to the stream over here. What are some of those new things? Well, no, we're not looking at this right now, right? This, like the thumbnail over here, the Bitcoin. Is this the last cycle? Is the 4-year cycle broken? And is Bitcoin about to do quote unquote, a random walk towards $1 million, right? Or are we right now, this is actually looking at a log regression scale chart. You can see the top green line over here. You can see what happens next. Are we about to actually hit a bear market, approximately another 10 months in length, touching down below the red line over here. That could be somewhere or should be somewhere around $20,000. We have the year of the bull providing the absolute clarity. This dotted line, the mania phase, he calls it, right? Well above it right now. Not only well above the mania phase at this point of the 210,000 block cycle. Some people are starting to say, by the way, that the 4-year cycle, it was Willy Woo. Willy Woo over the weekend talking with Anthony Papalano and William, saying that he believes that the 4-year cycle is no longer in play. And what we're looking at from here going forward is just basically, he calls it a random walk. Like there's a book, Fooled by Randomness. It comes to mind. I've actually only read a couple of books on trading, and I've read them over and over. And I even got the audiobooks, Reminiscence of a Stock Operator, the story of Jesse Livermore. It has taught me so much about the markets. It's ridiculous. And then we have the market wizards and the new market wizards. Always looking to the legends. Oh, I love them so much. Never anything on actually application of TA, of chart patterns. I did read one morning in a Borders bookstore, having a cup of coffee on a Saturday morning, Steve Neeson's candlestick charting. Epic story describing how rice futures traded 5,000 years ago in China became the first market, and how these candles work and how you visualize them. But it took me a long time to learn that the shape of the candle is noise. I'm focused on signal. What is signal over here? By the way, love the chart work. Year of the bull. We're still holding the golden ratio. Mid-cycle, as every other cycle has before. Now, certain people are saying that they believe that's it. The 4-year cycle no longer exists. By the way, what are we looking at? Oh, no, I just did it. Okay. Hold on one second. I said to you I was worried. And I said I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to show the charts that I was speaking about. Hold on one second. Let me figure this all out. Let's get this going over here. Boom. Oh no, we've lost it. We've lost control. Hold on, stick with me. Let me try to bring this up. Oh, how is he going to do it? I'm not really sure. Let's do a new window. Maybe I could open up my last window. I do apologize about the technical difficulties over here. And we've lost everything. We lost, that's from last session. Oh, what a travesty. I had such a beautiful, beautiful episode planned for all of us. This has never happened before. How we're going to go forward, how we're going to do it, I do not know. We're going to work it out somehow. We're not. Oh, what do we do, fam? What do we do? Do we abort and start over with a fresh new stream and just get into the presentation on the new one, or what do we do? I don't know. I was so excited. All right, hold on one second. Let me try and pull up another tab, and let me see if I could. Oh, it was such a good presentation. Earlier today. Oh, oh. Command Shift T. Well, that's not going to do it, is it? That's just the last window I had open. Oh, wait a second. We got it all back. Command Shift T to the win, for the win. All right. Thank you so much. Saving the day. Oh, I got to highlight this for a second. There is no rush. Tom K. Tom K. Tom K. Saving the day over here with the Command Shift plus T. Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. I'm so excited about everything we have to share today. I know it's a Monday. It's been a weekend away from y'all, and just preparing over the weekend, looking at the market, saying what's the most interesting thing going on in the markets right now that I want to share with all of you, right? And that's what I like to do every day with each and every one of you. I'm looking at the combined balance sheets of the Fed. Right, I was talking about the year of the bull, the clean insight and perspective he brings. We'll bring it back to that, but this is the signal. Focus on signal. Right now, we're looking at the combined balance sheets of the Fed, the Bank of Japan, and the ECB. Right, fiat is being devalued across the world. This is not including China. China getting ready, by the way, for a huge credit impulse. The next 6 months is going to be led by China, or so it appears or looks like. We'll talk about that maybe tomorrow, maybe later in the week, right? But we are looking at fiat being devalued. People are right now, the dollar's gaining strength over here. Yields are falling right now. Is that the gold, silver? How do I bet the real estate market? How do I best play the devaluation of fiat? That's our signal. That's what we are focused in on. I'm looking at Bitcoin, right? And for me, then when I click on these tabs all day long now, they're gonna take a minute to load. Obviously, normally before every presentation, I'm making sure. Let me close out this window. I'm making sure that they're all loaded, so I could go back and forth, and it's really smooth. Either way, I'm just kind of happy that we're able to go ahead and go over this session. We got a lot to cover, right? I'm looking at Bitcoin. It looks massively bullish over here. I wish I had the year of the bulls charts. I want to pull them up. Hold on one second. Let me pull up the year of the bull where he's talking about the mania phase. Let's get that going over here. So we go year. I say year of the bull. It's misconfig all day long. We all know that, right? Misconfig. All right. He was just sharing a chart. There he goes, right over here. This is the pin chart he has. And the dotted line that you notice over here, a lot of people are wondering, I didn't have the opportunity to show it to you. I was looking at a log regression trail. Did anyone see that? Did anyone see the log regression trail, or was that being hit at the time? I was talking about how people wondering right around whether or not we're going to be entering into prolonged bear market. Coming down, maybe bottoming out somewhere around $20,000, the previous all-time high. When I say previous, I'm talking about the last 4-year cycle. Going back to the 2016 cycle, we peaked out at 19,400. It then took 3 years to make a higher high. Price made 3.5 years to make a higher high. And then, it was Plan B who said, if you're holding Bitcoin over 4 years, you're making money. Year of the bull, he bought that down. He's like, no, every 3.5 years. Are we going to come back and test that breakout? And if we are you bullish on Bitcoin or are you bearish on Bitcoin? You have to ask yourself that question. Right now, with price trading at $33,000, where's your risk? Is it to the upside or is it to the downside, right? What has a higher probability of occurring? Is it $20,000 Bitcoin or is it $100,000 Bitcoin, right? What has a high, what do you foresee happening? Do you foresee happening, $250,000, $500,000 Bitcoin? Or do you see Bitcoin going to zero? These are the things that you need to be weighing in your head as you set up your initial investment, your accelerator towards those other goals that you're going to look to accomplish. If you don't have this goal first in place, there was a beautiful one over here, dollar cost averaging. Let me bring it up over here. Boom, Heidi. If you aren't dollar cost averaging the Bitcoin right now, you're doing it wrong. This is the beginning. This is essential. All right. Anyway, year of the bull, misconfig pointing out right now why people are thinking perhaps that we are quite bearish. That by the way, did you see the tweet I put out over the weekend talking about in just 10 days, 9 days now? I don't want to count down to it. It's no big deal. But Jack Dorsey is going to be sitting down with Elon Musk, right? And he's going to be talking about why Bitcoin incentivizes clean energy. And Elon's going to become a believer. It's a staged event, and at the end of the day, Elon, right? Physics is physics. There's no way he could walk away not agreeing. What is that going to do overall for the narrative of Bitcoin, which right now is definitely under a lot of pressure ever since Elon said that, you know what? Bitcoin's not clean. We're going to hold it on our balance sheet. We're not going to sell it anymore after we tested liquidity. But what we're going to do is not accept Bitcoin for Teslas until it's clean energy. And since then, you have a lot of funds, a lot of large funds who are very particular about what they do with their money. One of the themes right now is that ESG, right? It has to be clean energy, or they can't invest into it, or they're paying higher rates for doing it. Or certain investors will then not want to invest their money into those type of funds, and that's a trend that's going to accelerate going into the future. Over the next 5 and 10 years, Bitcoin needs to be, or Bitcoin is rather, incentivizes clean energy. So the network needs to become clean energy or supported by clean energy. You saw that happening in New York over the weekend. The largest hydropower plant in the world, over 300 years it's been operating and is still operating, has realized that by mining Bitcoin, clean energy, mining Bitcoin, it's a good thing. They could actually, instead of getting about like 3 cents a kilowatt to sending that back to the grid and the power supply company paying them, they can make 3 times as much mining Bitcoin. They're not looking to hold the Bitcoin. They're looking just to sell it into fiat as soon as they make it and to fund their operation that way because they make more money that way. Bitcoin incentivizes clean energy, right? So doesn't matter what their role in the overall network is, meaning like, well, they're not hodling that Bitcoin. They're not, it doesn't matter. They're securing the network, and they're doing it with clean energy. Misconfig over here pointing out, listen, we're just right now on that golden ratio. Past performance is not indicative of future results, but so far in the past, every bull market, this is held. And here we are holding again. Do we continue to hold here? Are we mid-cycle? And are we coming off and going into from the mania phase to this is real, to the blow off phase? That's my general thesis. General thesis. I mean, that is what I believe is going to happen. I believe right now, sitting mid-cycle, waiting for the most important trend line to break, things are incredibly bullish any way you look at them. Any way you look at them, to me, price is extraordinarily bullish. By the way, I was looking this morning, in the link of the description is a video. It says getting started with CTM. And I was like, well, what is that? I have to understand what that is so I could tell people, I put it out there as a way to help people understand what it is that we're doing. But if you start looking at this morning, these videos, seeing where price is at $17,500. $17,500. And in this video this morning, I'm talking about, listen, could this melt up continue? A lot of people into $14,000 and $15,000 were saying, wow, price came really far, really fast, right? 30, 40% in a matter of weeks. And I was saying, no, this particular time, watch out to the upside. Prices come fast. It's going to come a lot harder. It's not only to get into this area around $19,000 that we're going to be looking for that pullback, and that pullback's going to come, right? Well, listen to this. And then when that pullback came, what did I say?
Be outside the norm. This video might actually in the future be perfect for those that are just getting started with the channel to have some type of understanding of what we do over here. And before we talk about what's going on today in the markets, before we talk about what's going on the indexes, on the DXY, before we look at Bitcoin and where it might possibly be topping before its pullback, which is coming. That's the first time you've heard me say that. Remember, I've been saying ever since $14,000, $15,000, do not look for that pullback yet. We have much higher to go. First, I want to look and talk about something with you all.
Wow. I mean, so think about it. What's more important? Think about it. What's more important for you? What is signal and what's noise, right? is signal for you positioning into a trade and then being able to like stay on the right side of that difficult trade, right? Being up 4x from your original position, or being the guy who called, we're gonna have a Wyckoff distribution and come off 50% in the bull market. And like, did you get that out of that 50% move? How much did you get of it? Did you get like 30-40% of that move, or did you get the very top and the very bottom? Did you get the 53%? How did you do it? That's pretty awesome. Or by the time you walk away, are you still bearish on this? Are you looking to sell right now? Right now is Bitcoin in a near-term downtrend. Are you selling resistance all the way up over here? Right, that you haven't seen any follow through for about a month or a little bit longer. Or what happens when we come into the most important trend line? That's a big deal, by the way. When we come into if we're rejected there, I mean, there's the opportunity if you're bearish on Bitcoin to lean into it. That would be but leaning into it over here in this area, I mean, what are you expecting on the downside? And how much of that downside do you think you're going to get? When we come back up into the most important trend line of crypto, a rejection there, yeah, that could offer a lot of bearish potential. That's not to say that we come into here and we don't knock on resistance before breaking through. But if we have a clean rejection and then come back and test the lows, that would be very bearish for Bitcoin. But people betting on Bitcoin, getting bearish on Bitcoin right now after getting that 50%, move off the top, prices come off a little bit. I say a little bit because of the volatility involved here. When you're talking at an asset that in 12 months that is up, 350%, you would expect that it's not straight up. And Bitcoin continues to do Bitcoin things. People are focused on what's going on. And then you're looking at a 5-day chart of Bitcoin. This chart looks pretty good. I think the market wants to see what happens tomorrow. I think that, the market's interesting. What this is, the inflation transitory. What is the narrative we're being fed, and why are we being fed it? It seems to me everyone is talking more now, or the media is talking more about inflation is actually here. Does that mean inflation is no longer here and like these deflationary forces are now going to be taken over, right? Or, obviously you all know my opinion on inflation, that it's not transitory, right? And you look at things and you say right now the housing market, it's really overblown. What about the Fed's balance sheet? The stocks go up, QE, uber asset inflationary. They're not taking their foot off the pedal. They're still got it on the throttle. And China's now stepping up. And after it tried to kind of push the brakes on a little bit over the last 6 months, it's now all of a sudden cutting rates, and we're going to see that credit impulse to the upside. That's going to take, in my opinion, the markets with it. We'll see people calling victory as lumber has come down off its all-time highs. A few weeks ago, by the way, as China was saying commodity prices are hot, that was the top. Interesting that we noted that over here. I'm looking at Bitcoin mid-cycle, and to me, it's only a question until we break the most important trend line in crypto. And when we do, I'm looking for that momentum to carry us back forth towards that euphoric phase. I still believe in the 4-year cycle. Now, I understand come the fall, it looks or appears not only will more public companies, there's chatter out there about for each earning release, which company is people talking today about Apple putting like $1 billion or $2 billion on it. Who knows? That doesn't, if it happens, that's signal at any point in time. But regardless, we are seeing nation states make, El Salvador $150 million Bitcoin fund. They're not selling that Bitcoin. And they are a very small country. There will be others. There will be many other small ones. And then you'll start seeing larger and larger, not only sovereign nations, but you're going to see also public companies and then large funds continue to do the same. That right there is signal. Is that going to mean the institutions are here and all of a sudden there's no more 4-year cycle? It's kind of like a super cycle, except this is the last cycle. Bitcoin never goes down from here. That's the discussion being thrown out there. It's not like does Bitcoin go to zero? It's not does Bitcoin test $20,000. It's like from here up, it's kind of randomness, but Bitcoin's going, to $1 million. And does it stop there? Does it stop there? No, of course it doesn't stop there. It's going to go on, first of all, not only to overtake the market cap of gold, right? $500,000 Bitcoin, right? Then towards $1 million Bitcoin, all of a sudden, Bitcoin is a $20 trillion market cap. It's that black hole sucking in all that M1 over $100 trillion. There's a ton of money out there. And that money continues to grow exponentially. At the last time the New York Fed expanded their balance sheet, it was $4.1 trillion. The next time they do it, of course, they still continue $1.4 trillion a year. They're not taking their foot off the pedal. That's the signal, the expansion of the devaluation of fiat. How are you protecting yourself against that? Now, we want to know what's going on. Our time preference of most people is very low. So before we get into the charts and we look at what's happening next, let's continue in making sure that everyone has the correct time preference over there. If you're just joining us, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I don't spend enough time saying, hey, listen, please go ahead, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel, but that's enormously helpful. Please definitely do that. The more you smash the like button, the greater the odds that someone else here that's going to fit right in to what we do each and every day and add so much value to the community just sharply increases. So go ahead and support the community. If you're on the replay crew, thank you so much for the comments. I wanted to share that, that particular comment with everyone today. It meant so much to me. But for whatever, the airdrop wasn't working. I couldn't get it up this morning. Maybe tomorrow. All right. I was looking at charts BTC. Before I get and focus in on the technicals, and it's not just on Bitcoin, I want to take a look at across the markets. Stock markets are mixed. Here I am on Forex. Stock markets are mixed, right? S&P unchanged, Nasdaq up. We'll focus on the charts, but right now I want to focus on what's most important. So I'm taking you over here to Charts BTC. How instrumental was Charts BTC's Twitter account for everything that we were doing in 2019? Early 2020, really helping with clarity lay out the different layers of Bitcoin cycle, looking at it from different vantage points. In this particular epoch, a window of time, every 210,000 blocks of Bitcoin, looking at price on the log scale. You could see as the year of the bull misconfig had the golden ratio. Over here I'm focusing, by the way, on the previous cycle's low. Here's the 2012. This is the mid-cycle low, the bear market low over here, right? Are we in the bear market low right now on this current cycle? It would be weird in that this would be a shortening cycle. What do I mean by that? I'm trying to get to the halving tracker. All my charts aren't loaded, as I said, but Tom, thanks for the save. We're looking at right now, are we looking at shortening cycles and do we enter the bear market? Is that possible that we're looking at Bitcoin right now priced after the days after they're having approximately 435 days? Was this a shorter cycle with diminishing returns? I mean, anything's possible, right? But it's not really probable. Are we looking at a lengthening cycle, this one? By the way, I give a window this is 85 days between the 2016 and the 2012 cycle peaking. So it's a window of about 85 days. Is it possible this current cycle peaks about 85 days after, right? And would that be a lengthening cycle like the KS model? Or would that be a lengthening cycle like Benjamin is talking about price, or a super cycle that Dan is talking about? Or is this the last cycle that Willie Will is talking about? What I foresee happening in this September, this is why the 4-year cycle for me is still very much in play. What I foresee happening is a lot of money in the fall, starting in September into October, coming not only from institutions, coming from public companies, and coming from sovereign countries. And it's really going to set off a mania phase. There's going to be massive FOMO coming from many different angles. Massive FOMO, and the price is going to react accordingly. But all of a sudden, there's not going to be that next fund there. at a certain point in time. There's not going to be that next company announcing. Everyone's going to be on hold, right? And price is going to, after it goes through that mania, is also going to crash. That's the way I see it. The market is not all of a sudden going to mature to the fact that, like, as you're looking at, not how many Bitcoin users are there, by the way. I know that Bitcoin adoption continues faster than the internet's adoption, which is absolutely mind-blowing to think about. The adoption of Bitcoin is actually faster than the adoption of the internet. However, I mean, Bitcoin is just transmitted over the internet, and the internet's already in place, so it makes sense that the adoption is even faster, right? With that in mind, let's look at these charts. Let's look at these charts from Charts BTC, and he's showing on the log scale. He starts off on the linear scale, right? And he's saying, I don't really like to look at the linear scale when it comes to Bitcoin because too much emphasis is on that blow off top, right? I could get a better view of it, looking at a log scale, which accounts for the volatility of each cycle, right? Does this cycle look drastically off? He uses diminishing returns before each window, right? Before each epoch. This window of time that's measuring a calendar time over here. And, if this cycle did peak, we enter that bear market, yeah, that would be highly unusual. The cycle would be much shorter, and we're seeing diminishing returns. Even showing diminishing returns, we're looking at what? Approximately, and still, right, exactly where my price target is, or maybe when I say our, I don't know if I speak for you or not, but in that window of $250,000 to $400,000, the sweet spot over there, well within line when visualizing it like this. Where I know it's supply and demand. Where's the demand coming from? It's the summer. It's 2021. We really haven't seen someone step in and buy Bitcoin aside from MicroStrategy. Right? MicroStrategy over the last month, they did make another, what was it? A 500 million or a $1 billion purchase of Bitcoin, and they continue, and they will continue in the future. That's basically that way their company's set up right now. I want to look at these charts too. When you're looking at right now, the current return of Bitcoin lined up. This is by block count, a much better way of visualizing Bitcoin, by the way. A much better. Anyway, sorry, I got distracted off by that comment. It's much better following the price, looking at the block count, because the halving is every 210,000 blocks. It's not every, 4 years or whatever it winds up being, because it goes by blocks. Here you can see in this last cycle that Bitcoin is showing per block count. When was this uploaded? June the 27th. So very recently. 2 weeks ago, and is showing that actually we're not seeing diminishing returns this cycle when you line price up by the halving, right? Right now, these cycles are all scaled from the halving. We're seeing at this particular time in 2017 on the 2016 cycle, price also had a 3.8x, right? So it's interesting when you view it like that. What about if you line it up a little different? The cycle bottom, right? Here you can see actually Bitcoin is showing diminishing returns. If I line them off their cycle low from the last cycle, and price over the last, call it, month, has broken down into diminishing returns. Is that a temporary signal like was seen before earlier in cycle, especially during the crisis, right? Was this, mid-cycle mega shakeout when all of a sudden like Bitcoin narrative changed and got ugly, right? And then all of a sudden, are we going to see that turn around for the mania phase now and continue to outperform and go up, back above outperforming the previous cycle? Will it rise up but underperform the previous cycle, still putting up a massive return? Or is the top in? And is that it? Is the top in? Has the Fed decided that for whatever reason, they feel that not only is it the responsible thing to raise rates and to start tightening, but do they know that the system will break if they do that? Does anyone believe that's a possibility that everyone could get their financial house in order? Where else can we look at that from the cycle highs? This is looking at the cycle peaks. You could see Bitcoin slightly underperforming right now the previous cycle, but very close, and is all this randomness? And if you take the slope of the last 3 cycles, the rational root does a very good job at that, doesn't he? We should look at that soon because the slope of this current cycle still continues. You just take out the drawdown and keep the angle of the slope to outperform the previous cycle. That's still my base case. My base case is still that this current cycle will outperform the last. Now it's set up, or everything that I've done is set up so that if we see diminishing returns and Bitcoin reaches $160,000 this cycle, at 140, I've reached all my financial goals that I set out to accomplish before this halving event. Everything that I've been doing with you on this channel, right? Now, I'm looking to follow price. And I want to make sure that following price, I'm able to get the most out of what the market gives me. Do I believe for a second that by following price that we've entered a bear market in Bitcoin and are in the process of over 12 months, drawing down 85%? No, I don't believe that at all. I don't believe that at all. Nothing that I look at or consult, right, points to that whatsoever. What are some other things? People are asking on-chain analytics earlier today. I was looking at this one, which seemed to me to be pretty much, not this one. I have 3 to share with you. Houston, what's up, Gary? I was looking over here at liveliness. The sum of coins destroyed, of days destroyed, divided by the sum of coins days created. But you could see this accumulation period, right? All through May 2022, up until Bitcoin started running. When Bitcoin started running, this was November 2020, mid-November 2020, into December, January, February, March, you could see that the distribution was happening, right? And now we finally have run into accumulation again. Is this accumulation phase going to run for several months? Or with this one mid-cycle, which if you go back to previous cycles, you're seeing the same thing occur, is it going to be shorter? A lot of people have different perspectives of where they believe to be. Will, pointing out the volatility of Bitcoin, getting ready here to rise. Is price going to rise up or is price going to rise down, fall down? It looks like either way, sooner than later, we're getting to an area where price is going to make it or break it. And we're going to see a big dump or a big spike and sharp move up. It's going to be sharp and it's going to be quick. The melt up, right? Is that still in play? As Bitcoin's volatility continues to really shrink over here in this area, and it's getting set to rise and it's going to rise. Now we can't time that down to the day, and it could be 6 weeks from now. It could be into late August. It could be to early September. You can't put a time on it, but markets go from that compression to expansion. It's what they do. They consolidate, and the longer they consolidate, the bigger the move. This is all going back to the market wizards, the new market wizards, William O'Neill, CanSlim, the most successful traders. This is when they're looking for that opportunity. But by the way, the video that was done last week by Justin, 2 weeks ago by Justin, putting together the CTM principles from investing that time into the course and into his skill set, and then pointing out further when you could find when price is like coming towards the end of that consolidation phase, and you could be there to take advantage of that expansion phase. Just continuing to putting all the pieces together. Have you looked at Bitcoin's lows? Do you know there's only one time since Bitcoin's inception that it made a lower low? It was in 2015. It made it's not 50%. This is like 30%, 35% lower from the 2014 306 yearly low, $190, But Bitcoin has a history of making lower lows. The low from 2021 so far is $28,000. We're pretty close. Price right now at $33,000, $32,000. Is Bitcoin attractive going back to right now, to Heidi? If you're not dollar cost averaging the Bitcoin right now, you are doing it wrong. I myself stepping in over here mid-cycle buying the dip, right? I bought Bitcoin $39,000, not trying to time it at all. Bitcoin 33,500 as I made the purchases, saying I am dollar cost averaging. I am not timing this technical whatsoever. I am just watching the price of Bitcoin off 15% from the all-time high mid-cycle. It's an opportunity. The last time there was an opportunity that I pointed out to you, it was a couple of times. It was Bitcoin between $7,000 and $8,000, telling you or laying out the bullish case for Bitcoin according to the 4-year cycle, according to following past models and watching what happened. And then when we had the technical breakout, over the summer of 2020, together, making sure we were there to see if it was a failed breakout or we were able to retest and resume out of it. On the resumption out of it, making sure everyone kept strongly fully positioned, riding that wave, the big wave, riding the wave that mattered stronger than anyone else. And a lot of people over here just joining oh, the wave's really breaking over there. I got to get over there, and then wipe out because you don't know what's going on, right? And then those people are very bearish right now because the market, right? It's been tough for them. Their expectations were a little unrealistic and let's say a little aggressive, and that's good. That's how the market cleans itself out. That's how the market is able to go forward, and the market really cleaned itself out. But people could say, look, I focus on the technicals, and if I'm looking at the technicals right now, price looks pretty bearish. There's nothing positive about it. Well, it depends how you view price. I keep showing you the way that I view price, right? And why I view price the way I view price. And everything that I look at or consult looks extraordinary bullish for Bitcoin. And you know what? Being that I'm the guy who was able to foresee all this occurring, including getting the bottom, after the capitulation, everyone was very nervous. Everyone was very nervous. There's a lot of fear out there. I feel a lot of fear out here today. I don't fear as much as over here. And we're going to feel it again during the bear market. If you've been through a bear market, you understand everyone is basically giving up. Everyone's not only giving up, their views are really just negative. Is that you want to buy when there's fear in the street? I'm buying over here, a lot of fear in the street over here mid-cycle. I guess it's hard to understand, well, listen, I got massive amount of money coming into Bitcoin, countries adopting it, the hash power moving out of China and becoming more and more, clean energy. Yeah, it's hard to make the bearish case for Bitcoin. I'm trying really hard always to be watching out. You all know better than anyone else, I look at what the greatest risks are to Bitcoin. And I talk about them with you time so that everyone's prepared. But I don't see any of those things occurring right now. Does that mean that I'm wrong and they're already in process and we right now, as we pull back 50%, are getting set up for another massive dump over here? Yeah, I mean, look, it's the markets. Oil went negative in 2020. Do you remember? But you also remember how from, tracking oil, $65,000. You remember when the missiles were sent into Iraq and this whole business was going on with Iran, the U.S., at the time, the U.S. kind of backed down from war. First time in my lifetime, the U.S. kind of backing down from war, rightfully so, but the oil price was spiking up. Everyone was hyper bullish on oil. We said, you know what? For us, 55,000 oil and down, we were able to trade that, calling out first, what, it looks like we're going to hit in the low 30s. And then when that unraveled rather quickly, what, this looks like, maybe the mid 20s. And then what happened quickly? Wow. Okay. 1450 on oil. Boom. Are we seeing something like that occur that would cause us to change our view on the overall markets? I'm not seeing that at all. When I look at the overall markets, right? S&P, new all-time highs. Technically, the bull is running. It looks really good, right? The Nasdaq, same thing. It looks really good. Well, that means the markets are going to crash, right? Because, I mean, everyone, and this is going back from over here, back into May, June 2020, the macro bros were telling us about, insolvency events, this whole way through. We're like, no, we're following the money. We're following the central bank's expansion. It's uber asset inflationary. And the whole way up, no. Oh, well, that was inflationary. That was inflation, but the market's wrong, right? That trade's overcrowded. We're going to crash. And then, boom, All right, all right, all right. Now we're looking for some type. GameStop is going to cause some type of systematic crash, and the markets are not crashing. And when they were crashing, this was traded on this channel over here better than anyone else. Better than anyone else out there on the way to, it's all on video and you could go watch it. And then on the way up as well, right? If Bitcoin or something is happening in the financial markets, it looks like it's falling apart and or crashing, I hope that I can be there. There's no certainty in that. There's no certainty that I can't miss it. And I hope not. Obviously I have a lot riding on it. That's why I'm so focused in on it. But there's a difference between like not seeing the double wave. And by the way, I view this as a double wave. And this was not a blow off top. It was a different type of occurrence. Could that happen on the way up over here? If we break the most important trend line in crypto, right? And we start like trading at some like, significant price appreciation, is it possible that the topping occurs over a period of time, like into November, December, and January? I mean, I hope at that point when I'm looking for the top, right? Because we have this is, Ted's outstanding work over here, CTM, collective model, Ian's work, my work, putting it all together and then illustrating it beautifully over here. Like I'm gonna really be looking for the top over here in this window, in this area, right? And that I know that this window could occur at any time in this whole big wide area, but this is the sweet spot. And this is when I'm really, and if we topping is not a blow off top, but some type of rounding top, I hope that I'm going to be aware and looking for that. I was only looking for a blow off top if we had a double wave. And you can go back to that video I put out on January, early January, and I'm talking about a double wave. Actually, it's the featured video on the channel, I believe. And I was looking for, in this cycle, if we had a double wave. I wasn't looking for an early blow off top or early round off top or an early top, right? You all know from afar, I consult the possibility of lengthening cycles because I do believe eventually Bitcoin is going to reach a rate of adoption where the curve flattens on top. Now, I don't think we're not close to that happening. I think that's years away. And as that occurs in the future, I'm going to be able to round myself with it, right? But that's not, I'm not seeing lengthening cycles right now. We'll see if they are. I'm watching for them. I'm aware of them. I'm aware, I'm trying to be aware of everything, but I wasn't looking for a rounding top that would lead to a second type of wave. And even if I were looking for that, and there was I knew there was going to be a 50% drawdown, right? Now, everyone trading, myself trading, it would have been a lot cleaner getting on the sidelines. It would have been a lot cleaner. And maybe like around that $58,000, $58,500, you're dead wrong below that. That would have been like not trying to, at $55,000 to try to catch the repair, not at $50,000 trying to catch the repair, managed very well. But, in hindsight, you want that perfection, always looking to improve, always looking to do better. What would you do right now? If you fast forward 3 months from now and you're looking at where we are today, what do you think happens? Let me clean this up a little bit. Do you think, you're trying to look at this like, we have no idea where price is going to be 3 months from now, and it could be $20,000, and it could be much higher. I have no idea what's going to happen, right? But where do you think it's going to be? Do you think that we're looking at $20,000 Bitcoin in September, right? What's the floor for you? That's a little aggressive for me. In my sure, it's possible, but it's very aggressive to look for a move to $20,000. I think that's a little bit of hopium for the bearish case of Bitcoin to be looking at something like $20,000 on the downside. Set your risk accordingly, though. Make sure that you understand, hold on. Here we have, is $20,000 probable? Well, for me, it's not probable. I don't know about that, but it's certainly possible. What about the bottom? Is the bottom in place? Ever since price first spiked down over here on this day, I thought that this was the bottom in place. I thought that this was the bottom in place. And I said, well, if that is ever taken out and it won't be right away, then it looks like Wyckoff, accumulation is taking place. Is that happening? I listened to from afar the conversations taking place on Twitter. So Jeremy, John Kay, some enormous stuff, talking with the Wyckoff guy, and I feel like they're on top of it. I feel like that they are like the prime resource if you feel like that accumulation is taking place and want to follow it. I continue to watch. This is the line of repair that we drew in over here on 628. The first time that we said, well, we see a repair. That repair remains in place so far with this low now from June the 22nd. That if price will price trade below there, and if it does, where do you think it bottoms out from there? Is it perhaps in the mid 20s? I have over here this trend line. I can make it. It's a clone trend line of the most important trend line in crypto. I have it lined up over here, not from where the volatility of that day. By the way, this is a story to tell those in the future, and there are many stories to tell from the past to all of you today, but this is one of them. Many of you have lived through the BitMEX feed loop, the March 2020 crisis in Bitcoin, right? You've lived through that. So there's no volatility that could get you again. You've seen the volatility like at its worst. And this over here, once the volatility cleaned up a little, price started putting that as the floor and touched a few times as support. Do I think that if price breaks down outside of that recent low, that it comes down and perhaps test into that area over here, that pocket? Yeah, I think the mid 20s is possible. I do think that's possible if we do take out this low over here. I don't think it's probable, but it's possible. The first repair is in place though, and that's what's the most probable. Usually these things hold, right? So I'm looking for this to hold right now over here. You can manage your risk. You can manage it very carefully. At this particular point, your risk to reward even into, if the bears have control here, then you should still see a move into the most important trend line in crypto. Even if the bears have control, right? And if they have control, this will then be rejected and they will make a lower low. And with power, they'll be able to make it a leg down. This, could we see capitulation happen over here from this level? And like that usually looks like if that occurs, something sharp down and sharp up. So that, it could happen, be aware for everything, but that's all in my opinion, that's all near-term noise. That's all near-term noise. If you zoom out, it's very clear to me where we're going from here. It's just a question of when, but looking very, very bullish over here. By the way, in your opinion, when price enters these accumulation zones, I'm looking at the 3-day, the true trend over here. When we enter these long-term accumulation zones, you can see the true trend in red over here. In all cases, the 2-year MA, I saw briefly in the comments, Misconfig was saying he uses a slight variation, or in his Twitter post, he's using a variation of this. But are you bullish or bearish in those areas, right? Well, that's when I'm the most bullish, by the way. That's when I am the most bullish, right? And I've made it known in those areas. Specifically in those areas, that's when I've made it known and make the case for the trade, right? So if we were, for whatever reason to have some type of anomaly, Bitcoin trading or peeping out, very early mid-cycle at $65,000, and then we come back into this area, $20,000 or whatever it may be, is price going down to $10,000? I hear chatter of it. Do you think Bitcoin, the most secure decentralized network in the world, right? With what's the use case for it? When people say store of value, they mean like, everything else they put their money in, their money's being devalued massively, right? So anyway, obviously I'm bullish on Bitcoin. Yeah, Grayscale's unlocking. So, the Grayscale thing, right? There's a lot of FUD about there, what could happen near term, but Grayscale sells Bitcoin to cover their fees. They charge 2% on there as a management fee. They're holding a massive amount as a large fee. They'll sell Bitcoin to cover that fee, but Bitcoin doesn't sell Bitcoin, do they? It's in their charter, right? That once the Bitcoin comes in, it doesn't come out. Is that going to change, or did they change that? I don't know. Tether's falling apart. What? I mean, I've been hearing that since 2017. But it's still here and it's still operating, right? So anyway, China, the mining takes place in China. It's not decentralized. Well, we had the miners, the war with the miners, right? Who won, right? We understand that those running the node, they're the ones that form consensus on Bitcoin. But nevertheless, those miners have moved out of China. What's the next thing going to be? Bitcoin energy is too green. It's too green. It's taking all the energy because it takes all the green energy wants to go towards Bitcoin. We'll find out. What else do we want to look at today? I'm so thankful that Tom was able to get this back up over here. Otherwise, it would have been so lost. Had all these beautiful things. Looking at viewing Bitcoin from its lows. Where do you think it's a good time to buy Bitcoin? Do you think I'm buying the dip over here. I've been buying the dip. I think we're mid-cycle. Bitcoin looks massively bullish to me. This is another one. It's called the Pure multiplier. Multiply, if my pronunciation. It's on a relative basis. Miners right now are making less money than they have done previously, using the 1-year moving average to compare against. And historically, this is like the time to buy the dip, right? Major price lows. This is dip territory happening right now. Just another, indicator that we have that awareness. And everywhere I look around, I am extraordinarily bullish on Bitcoin. More bullish than I've ever been on Bitcoin. Now, how this all plays out, well, obviously that's what we have a seat together, to continue to monitor the markets, to make sure that people understand the markets are not crashing. Perhaps one of the most important memes in all of the financial sector. How many people just understanding the markets are not crashing? And not only that, when they are crashing, CTM will be there as we were in the past, right? As we were in the past. And then making sure everyone stays on the right side of the markets. The dollar is coming back into resistance, by the way. You can see the dollar working its way up back towards that resistance. If I look down on the daily, actually, the dollar broke the trend line, right? Hold on. It broke the trend line. It's coming in for a retest. A resumption off sends us strongly neutral on the dollar. Strongly neutral and a rejection at an important resistance. Remember, unless this trend line is broken to the upside, right? Right now, we remain just neutral on the dollar. It was breaking this sell momentum line over here, the will line over here that sent us neutral on the dollar. A break above this will send us bullish on the dollar. And right now, if we just try to break, yes, tomorrow's CPI reading, very important for the markets. The markets will be focused in on that, right? Is that near-term signal or noise? Listen, I think it's noise. The markets will adjust pretty quickly. It's a big deal. Powell testifying, is that noise? Is that signal? Could the markets react? The markets are going to have a bigger reaction, I believe, come the next Fed meeting, come what happens in Jackson Hole, come late August, Jackson Hole, Wyoming. So I think that tomorrow we're going to have an FX session. After the live stream, we'll do our FX session. FX markets are beautiful right now, alive, a lot to talk about. This was a good one. Thanks for saving it. Thanks for being here. I want to play some honeymoon vocals before we get out of here today. I love the analogy. That's what we do. We do some massively big wave surfing, and then when it's time to bring out the shortboard because the waves are nice and play around, we'll do that too. We'll do that better than anyone else at the time. But right now, big wave surfing all day long. Take a look at that together for sure in depth tomorrow. Nice, Dean. I mean, so Dean, right? Interesting on the euro US dollar as we're looking at the DXY breaking that trend line we just saw, like going back neutral heavy on the dollar, right? You're seeing the euro US dollar come in for that same thing on a, breakout, retest, resuming up. Are you looking to take this as a buy on the euro US dollar right now? If you zoom out, by the way, are you towards support, right? I see the support. You towards this whole area, by the way, of support, right? Is it possible? Is this the first repair? Are you in an uptrend on the euro US dollar, right? Are you looking here for a possible first repair taking place, breakout, retest, if you get the resumption up towards support, targeting back towards the top of that range? I mean, look, your risk to reward on the trade is awesome. It's a good one. It's a question of is that the best wave to be riding? I mean, that's something right here worth taking a look at. That's like CTM all day long. I'm going to be watching that later this afternoon. What about the Euro Japanese yen? Euro Japanese yen also, Matt. This is an awesome point. I'm seeing price coming down, breaking down, finding support, and now bouncing into retest, broken support. If this holds as resistance and resumes off, well, that's also that's fiery in play right there. Euro US dollar setting up for a possible short over here. Would I go long? No, I'm not going long, right? Would I go long if, off the bottom of horizontal support? That was a place to look for. It's occurring on a Friday though. A lot of Japanese yen strength in the markets. I was not looking to take that long. I told you I would wait to see if we bounced and then resumed off this as a place to take a possible short. What about on the upside? We have this trend line over here when we know that the yen weakness returns, but do we have anything else that could help us? I'm not really seeing that. I would be forcing that if I put that in there. So I'm not going to, but I would be looking for a rejection off of here overnight perhaps as well. So I got euro, weakness that would be played versus the Japanese yen, or if I have euro strength, that would be played versus the US dollar. What about like the euro British pound? Let's look at across. That's just very noisy. I don't want anything here at all. Price doesn't have the opportunity, in my opinion, to like break out at this particular time to go and break multiple support or resistance levels. There's no clarity there for me. The euro, New Zealand dollar, same thing. I mean, yeah, I think it's between the euro Japanese yen and the euro US dollar. We will to the downside. The equity markets in 2022, they're probably going to be like, we'll see. It's a long time away, but I imagine, that at that point they continue to rise. We will see. We will watch for corrections. We will look at corrections to whether or not this correction is a bigger systematic sign of unwellness. That's a bad word over there, but you always have to keep Venezuela in your mind. What happened to the Venezuela stock market as the economy imploded? And the US economy is not imploding at all. It's actually outpacing and outperforming, even China this year. Is that true? Well, the stock market certainly is. And why is that? Well, it's not that the stocks are rising. It's that the currency is being devalued. It's the devaluation of the dollar that's just appearing to see the stock market to rise. We looked at just on Friday, we had some explosive sessions last week. And if you didn't watch, those sessions last week, you're missing out on some really high quality content, enormous, but you got to watch it. You got to invest the time. You got to put the work in. Sorry about that. Yeah. So, I mean, listen, there are people calling the last cycle right now, right? So, are we going to see a dislocate, what's the word? Disassociation of Bitcoin from the equity markets in 2022? Is my belief, unless something changes, that in 2022, Bitcoin is going to be in a massive bear market. A massive bear market. It's going to be ugly. It's really going to be ugly. And people who don't think that we're going to see an 85% drawdown are going to be surprised. But I do remember just a few months ago that people were I mean 6 months ago people were saying that they don't think we're going to see more than a 20% drawdown. That's what we were seeing at the point. I made it very clear that I thought we saw 30 and 30+% drawdowns. Right now, I thought 40%, 39% was pretty much as far as we go. We went 53%. It's a massive drawdown, and I think people should see that even though there's big money here, like trying to get that that Bitcoin, there's still the normal marketable principles taking place here. Bitcoin off 53% mid-cycle, I think should be enough of a wake-up call that in a bear market, that Bitcoin could come off more than 60%. To me, it just makes sense. We'll see what happens. Obviously, we don't know. We can't predict the future, but we could continue making calculated risks. And that's what they're calculated risks. Or I should say calculated returns, as so it is. And that's what it's been, calculated returns. And we're going to continue doing our best here to conquer the markets, making sure that we stay on the right side of the market, right, across all markets, right? Why people all of a sudden everyone's an expert, but where were you? What's the important piece to get over here, right? Or did you get 30% of that down move, or are you up 350%? Right? And if you just bought into Bitcoin over here, towards the all-time high, what was your plan when you did that? Were you looking to get out of Bitcoin over the next 30 to 60 to 90 days? Or were you making an investment in Bitcoin that at the cycle peak 2021 bull market phase of the 2020 cycle, you're looking to exit your Bitcoin? And at what price were you looking to exit your Bitcoin perhaps? Why did you take that investment in the first place? Where were you going to sell? Were you selling if Bitcoin came off 10%? Right? Were you selling if Bitcoin came off 20%? Or were you holding that regardless if Bitcoin went to zero? It's up to you. I don't know. I don't know what your desires were, what you were projecting when you made these type of investments, when you're making these investments. I know what I am. I share them with you. I share that. Let me go ahead and pull this up. When I make, this is what I've been doing on BlockFi. The easiest place I know to buy Bitcoin. Some people say that the fees could be a little bit expensive. I'm more concerned with security. Who's managing the other side of the risk that I'm taking than I am with with a little bit of fees. When I'm looking at the gains that I'm looking at on Bitcoin or so far have achieved and envision myself achieving in the future, I'm not really so much concerned when I'm positioning into Bitcoin about the fee. Are there other cheaper ways to do it? Are there brokers that provide? Well, BlockFi provides ACH. Yeah, so that's helpful right there. I use wires. I use same day wires, but they also have the ability for ACH. I like the fact, that not only is there they use facial recognition when anytime a withdrawal is being made. And by the way, you have to plan in advance. It takes a week to, first of all, add an address that could be withdrawn to. The security for when you're taking a risk, looking at the other side and how they manage theirs, right? Who do they keep their Bitcoin with? They keep it with the Winklevoss brothers and Gemini. Gemini also a very good platform for a lot of people, a lot of easy, good place to buy. Some people prefer to store their Bitcoin there, right? Other people use things like hardware wallets, like a Ledger or a Cold Card or a Trezor, a Trezor with a passcode. Some people use Casa Hodl, right? With multi-sig solutions. You have to look into not only when are you looking to, make an investment, what your risk is, what's your time preference, but also your security, How are you diversifying, right? Do you use just one broker? Do you have multiple on and off ramps? What happens if your bank bans Bitcoin tomorrow? Do you have another bank that you could use? What happens if your broker all of a sudden, you know, goes it gets hacked and disappears? What happens if Binance the funds are not Safu? So, what happens if like and I know that like listen, with these crypto companies, I actually have much more trust as I have with foreign exchange companies like Owanda, than I do with like the traditional banking system in the US. But that's me. And I also understand that if there were to be some type of systematic collapse in the US and the banking system, that the FDIC is not there to ensure it. You know? Now maybe you have some money with Wells Fargo, and maybe there happened to, maybe that, the fraud they are accused of is real and you lose your money, the FDIC will be there probably to back you up. You're all good. But if there's some type of systematic failure, there's no way that they have the fun. I lived through the 2008 crisis. I remember what it was like. I remember when they bailed out the banks, when they bailed out the finance. They're doing the same thing today, but people are not upset. Why are people not upset? Well, because they handed out stimulus checks to certain people. Like businesses were destroyed, right? They helped these other companies like Amazon, which was just gaining enormous footing and traction, accelerate about 10 years in how much traction they've gained, right? It wasn't just Amazon. We've seen these things happen with Walmart, right? Walmart was open throughout the crisis, right? But other people's livelihoods were not. It wasn't a fair playing field. The government intervened. It wasn't free market capitalism at all. It was socially constructed. And now, here we are today. And you know what? We're spending more money than ever. We're borrowing more money than ever. We're in more debt than ever, right? And like people think that that's sustainable, but it's not. It's not sustainable, right? And what is signal is that we're coming eventually to a place where the US dollar's reign as the global reserve currency is no more. Now, that's not to say that the dollar doesn't continue to play a huge role in the worldwide markets. And most likely, it will. Most likely, that's what continues to happen, perhaps even being a leader. Perhaps like the digital yuan being launched right now, do people have that trust in China and in a currency that is completely surveilled and controlled by them? Do countries in Africa have a choice? Because if Bitcoin wasn't here, countries in Africa would really have no choice. The US, they're not in a position really to be like funneling money through Africa to steal their resources. We're focused on the Middle East and oil, right? And if we were, but China is, that's what China's doing. And if the Bitcoin wasn't there, these African nations, they might be forced to adopting the digital yuan. And maybe they will a little bit. It's quite possible that some trade will be done in digital yuan, but these African nations have a choice. They have Bitcoin and they are adopting it from the ground level. I have this over here. This is going to be bad. This is going to be bad if I put something up, I need some type of reminder I got to be more conscious of that. Listen, they have a choice though when it's Bitcoin. And you're seeing the people all across Africa, from the ground up transacting in Bitcoin. And now we're going to see actually nation states turning towards Bitcoin. Will Nigeria be one of the first because their currency is destroyed, right? There comes a certain point in time as El Salvador has chosen that path, looking for the people and looking for the future, that they adopt Bitcoin. I think that's what we're going to see happen. Africa, South America, eventually will there be a European country? Maybe, but there's no need for that right now. The euro's pretty good. The euro's pretty good right now. And the euro is actually increasing in use globally. Yeah. Up about 5% because you're seeing like Russia now trading with European countries for energy, right? They're trading in gas, in oil for euros. They're trading, buying and selling, settling in euros. Chinese and Russia are doing it in the yuan, right? They're doing it in the yuan. But are we going to see further cases of this being done with maybe? I don't see European countries needing to adopt Bitcoin at this particular time. Maybe in the future, they're right now the ECB is very clear. They're going to do whatever it takes to inflate that monetary supply by 2% a year. It's like they're going to do it. They're going to be stealing, and they're going to overshoot. And that's the message across everywhere. The message across all central banks is we don't care about inflation, right? We're going to really make inflation run hot right now. And if they say that they're going to be making it run hot, believe me, it's going to run hot. And that's what we're looking at going forward. So great session for a Monday. Good session for Monday. Listen, that's noise though. That's all noise, right? So don't worry about that. Thank you to the moderators. Could you tell us your honest opinion on? Look, my honest opinion on Benjamin's lengthening cycle, diminishing returns model is that, that it's not happening yet. That's my honest opinion. That diminishing returns are a real thing. We're seeing diminishing returns occur right now in the amount of QE that needs to be thrown at the current financial system. Bitcoin is like this small little blip in the financial system. And the US dollar is this like $100 trillion or $400 trillion when you factor in everything. Beast, right? And if right now the system's coming to a point where the amount of QE thrown at this thing needs to be exponentially increased to keep it going, otherwise it breaks, that's massive signal. And Bitcoin is like this. But Bitcoin is going to be that little black hole that sucks in that money because there's no alternative. There's nothing better than Bitcoin. So as Bitcoin starts to suck that movie in, the returns on Bitcoin are not diminishing. On the adoption curve, we're still in the early adopter space. Now, will that change 5 years from now? And maybe will the next cycle be the cycle where we start seeing diminishing returns, right? Do we ever see a lengthening cycle? I don't know. That's a hard one. What that means, does the halving does the supply shock of the halving of the miner's reward ever diminish to a point where that it's no longer relative? That would be when fees account for more of the miner's reward than Bitcoin itself. We're not there yet. We're not close to that happening yet. Is that going to happen one day? Yeah, the monetary supply of Bitcoin is coded. We already know what it's going to be in the future at any given point in time. And eventually, the halving of the miner's reward is not going to send that supply shock through Bitcoin. But we're not there yet. So that I'm focused on this cycle, and I'm focused going into next cycle. Is it possible that this cycle is the last cycle and that Bitcoin never enters into a bear market again? Anything's possible. I sincerely did not expect public companies to be buying $1 billion worth of Bitcoin in 2021. And I also did not expect sovereign nations in 2021 to be adopting Bitcoin. I mean, in the future, yes, including central banks putting Bitcoin on their balance sheets, but which hasn't happened yet, to our knowledge. Is Iran doing that in a form or fashion? The way that they incentivize their miners with cheap energy and then are able to trade in Bitcoin to get around U.S. sanctions? Yeah, that's also happening. Bitcoin is a lot of things to a lot of people. Yeah, to some people, Bitcoin is very bearish right now. They believe that they focusing on the technicals and it's really bearish, and they see a giant head and shoulders happening, right? I think Peter Schiff was talking about this. People are talking about it, and if that breaks, we go down to zero. Okay, I mean, that's what people say. But did those people, right? What were those people saying over here when we were at the bottom of the bear market? What were those same people saying, right? And during the COVID crisis, what were those people saying, right? And what were we saying? That's the difference. Listen, you have to consult those. You have to consult those who have a history of being right, of being correct, and not the guy who jumped on there today and he's like, yeah, I got my short board. It's big board weather. I got my short board. I'm ready to get into Mavericks And yeah, I'm going to be able to all of a sudden crush it. You're going to get crushed. I believe that. Bitcoin trading at $33,465 on this Monday in July. Grateful to share this moment in time with all of you. The rest of the week, I won't have the video up, up, I guess, into the end of next week or something like that. But I won't be. But we'll still be here tomorrow. We'll do our live stream in the morning. We'll check out the markets together. We'll do what we do together, right? We get together, we look at the markets, we make sure that we have the clarity we need to do epic things, to do extraordinary things. We're looking at these retirement calculators over here. Have you been looking at them? Right? Are you looking at them right now? Right? Can you imagine? They have two different plans over here, right? Notice one is the years to grow is 10 years, right? Now, are some people here looking at, starting with this type of sum? Yeah, there are people who have been following Conquering the Markets, for a year and a half, who are definitely at this stage. There's no question about that, right? So looking at over 10 years, right, with a growth rate of 20%, what's Bitcoin's average growth rate so far? I think it's like 200% a year, right? Do you think you have the possibility over the next 10 years to grow Bitcoin, to grow your investment at a rate of 20%, right? And by the way, if you were able to and then have that growth rate of 15%, how do you do that? Forex markets, 15% a year. Do you ever have to worry about your money running out? $587,000 a year in retirement, right? What happens if you're starting with something a lot less, like $10,000 and today? By the way, the best thing you could be doing today is what? If you're not dollar cost averaging in, you're doing it wrong, right? $10,000 today. Maybe starting with zero today. Maybe you're buying a fraction of Bitcoin today, but you're doing something today that's actually going to absolutely change your future, right? And what happens if your time to grow is a little bit different? You're looking at a retirement plan. How many are thinking about what is going to happen 20 and 30 years from now today? And are you making sure that this plan being put into place is getting the focus, time, and attention that it needs? What happens are 20 years? It's not a long time. And what happens if you're doing that at a growth rate of just 15%? I say just 15%, but most of you will not grow your money at a rate of 15%. Many of you will grow your money at a much greater rate and a much more consistent rate. At this particular time of life, at this moment in time, 2021, the markets are kind. The markets are volatile. What happens if you bought Bitcoin at $60,000 and that's your only investment, right? You're off 50% on your investment. You're looking to grow your money by 15% a year, right? Are you selling your Bitcoin, taking that 50% loss? And if you take that 50% loss, do you know it's going to take you 100% gain just to make back that money that you lost? If you have a 50% loss, it takes a 100% gain on that gain just to be made whole again, right? Do you feel that's the best use of your capital? Do you think Bitcoin's going down to 20,000 so that you should sell here and buy back at $20,000 and that you would have saved anything? Is that the way, or do you look at things on a different time horizon? Are you starting to see the perspective I give you, right? What are you looking at? This is 6 years in time. Where are we going to be looking at 6 years from now? Do you think Bitcoin is going to be trading at $34,000 and or near it or below, right? I wish I could get good at this. Right? What I meant to be showing you is 6 years here. This is what I meant to be showing you. But I'm trying to also at the same time get your perspective to be a little bit at this time lower so that you're looking, what is happening 20 years from now. And if you start saving now for 20 years from now, then for the rest of your retirement for another 50 years, the time horizon's a little bit different. They're off by 15 years. This one, you're growing your money an extra 10 years, right? But for the rest of your life, if you're able to maintain a 15% gain, having a substantial income in retirement, right? Are you trying to like work your whole life and just get by so that you could enter retirement and live off a pension that you could barely make ends meet on, especially because one way or another, unless the Bitcoin standard is adopted, that your purchasing power continues in retirement to be devalued? Or are you looking to put together and execute a plan that has the potential to get you into a place where in retirement, 20 years from now, starting with nothing today, you're in a position, to be thriving in that retirement the rest of your life? The decisions you make today are essential for tomorrow. Most people underestimate what they could do in 10 years. We overestimate what we could do in 2 years. Most people today overestimate what they could do in the next 3 months or the next 2 months. And their time preference is all out of whack. And it prohibits them from making money, right? My time preference has me positioned in over here very low. An average buy-in, very attractive. But I'm not looking at this as I'm looking at this mid-cycle. Everything is massively bullish. In the mania phase, that's what I'm looking at coming. Watch out for what happens in third quarter 2021. That's the message I've gave from you for over a year now, right? The correlations break in the first quarter 2021, and we saw the correlations break massively. But then I said it really gets interesting in the third quarter, right? So the second quarter, you have to ride that out. But we're riding that out, We're riding it out together, keeping the awareness we need to stay on top of the bull of all bulls. So a great session, everyone. Thanks for being here. Thanks for spending the time together. I'm hearing this talked about elsewhere. For sure, conquering the market is the first place that we talk about this, right? We talk about the greatest hit. Why my stop loss is zero? Why my stop loss is zero? What are the greatest risks in Bitcoin? What are these psychopaths doing? What did they do before the pandemic with what was it called? Was it called Project 201? Right, with the stimulation Johns Hopkins University, the Gates Foundation, and the World Economic Forum did with the pandemic taking place and then played out in real life a few months later. We all, they're doing it again with what happens if the internet goes out, how that affects supply chains. It's as if they're purposely trying or hoping that supply chains across the world could be disrupted and that power is further centralized. It's almost as if people are conspiring together to do their best to control the world. But that's just crazy talk. That's just crazy talk. The markets are manipulated. It's our job to profit from within that manipulation. Arshan, this is not, you seem to be big up on Cone. Don't worry about Cone at all. Don't worry. Listen, consult everyone and then you decide who's been right for the longest, who gives you the greatest clarity, and then that's where you focus your time and attention on, for sure. But if I know the information I've been sharing over the last 5, 10, 1 hour has been 90 minutes, has been absolutely pure signal, rock solid. Let's focus in on that and not worry about the noise. And that's what the other stuff is. So that's what it's all about over here, David. Right? We got tacos, surfing, and then we got the predators, right? Right now, if you're a predator, what are you doing? What's your plan right now if you're a predator? Bitcoin is known as the apex predator, right? I'm going to say that, listen, I'm a predator. Well, right? What am I doing? I'm buying the dip. That's what I'm doing over here. I'm not out there pouncing. I'm not that aggressive. I'm not out there gnawing on the gazelle, right? What I'm doing right here, right now, I'm just boom, buying the dip. Boom, buying the dip. With that stamina, right? When it's time to sprint like the cheetah, going in for the kill, I'm waiting for the most important trend line in crypto to break, right? I'm tracking it. I have my model, right? Over here to track it over here. And if everything's on time, it's going to give me I know when it comes down to it, what I'm looking for on price for that blow off top, if it's occurring. Now, you might not get your pitch. You might be waiting, and it might never happen. But I think I've laid out, as best as I could in this episode for you, as we talk about, people saying this is the last cycle, you know, I guess you have two ways to look at it ultimately. Is Bitcoin going to zero, or is this Bitcoin's last cycle? And in the long term, which of those two do you think has a higher probability? Is Bitcoin going to a million, or is Bitcoin going to zero? Right? And then I think you have to work out your financial planning around that. Only invest what you could afford to lose, right? Anytime you make an investment, before you make that investment, say, you know what, this is how much I'm willing to risk, and I realize I could risk it. At the same time, realize that if you just save your money, you're losing. If you're just saving those dollars and collecting and not investing in, you're losing over time, because they're devaluing your money. They're devaluing the purchase power of that money. Decide what's your best investment. Like, do you think gold, the most heavily manipulated asset in the world, is your best investment? Right? Where do you foresee gold over the next 5 years, over the next 10 years? Where do you see Bitcoin over the next 5, 10 years? Right? Do you think the stock market is your best bet over the next 5, 10 years? You have to look around. And anyway, I'm going to cut it here, Bobby Giles. Thank you to all the moderators. Thank you each for being here. Right? If you want to look at my retirement account, I just open the safe and look at my stack. Yeah. I mean, that's how I did it. We're going back how far now? Decade ago, Anthony. That's how I did it a decade ago. And those they're stacked. They're stacked. The only other time that I would add to that stack, and if I would, I'm not sure any longer. I'm not sure if I would, at the top of the Bitcoin bull market, add to my physical stack. It's nice to have, across the world, some money in a vault stashed away, but do you plan on ever using it? Do you already have enough? Do you already have enough where you never plan on using it? Anyway, I don't know what to say about that. There's a beautiful interview between Michael Saylor on Stanberry Research. If you do the gold debate, Stanberry's research, there's a beautiful debate with Michael Saylor versus I forget who the other person is, taking the stance of why gold. And that's a good one, a classic. If you haven't watched it, you really should. But precious metals are obviously risky, right? There's a lot of risk in them, right? Including their confiscation. Now, I understand that you might not never give up your gold. It might be buried in your backyard. You're never giving it up. If they come to collect it, or they're never going to collect it again. There's many risks. And by the way, if you're owning gold and you're storing that in a vault somewhere, and you're not storing that in your bedroom, right? There are risks with that as well, right? Not your gold, not your keys, not your coin, not your keys, not your Bitcoin, not your vault, not your gold. It's a risk. Be aware of all third-party risks and spread them out. Spread them out. I do believe if we get to a point where Russia is able to make a play, for gold being some type of heavier allocation to the future monetary system, or perhaps China, maybe it would take both of them to do that. Are they going to audit Fort Knox, by the way, if that happens? Like, if I was China and Russia, I would demand an audit of Fort Knox just to make sure that they have the gold. I don't know. Anyway, I'll see you all later. Have a beautiful day, everyone.